Hello, welcome to Unbelievable Tales.
Who sends a breakup text at midnight and gets a reply from a stranger who won't let it end there? Lena Morgan was only trying to say goodbye to years of disappointment to a man who never really saw her. But one missed digit changed everything. The reply was unexpected. Honest. Even kind. What followed wasn't a correction. It was a connection. And one message turned into a conversation that would unravel secrets, awaken something long buried, and make her wonder. What if the wrong number was actually the right one? Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Lena didn't usually drink red wine on a Tuesday night. But tonight, she poured a second glass. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, and her phone felt like a live wire in her hand. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard, heart pounding. This isn't working. I've waited too long to be seen, to be chosen. I'm done. She stared at the message. Read it again. Then added. I hope one day you understand what it means to love someone who kept hoping you'd finally show up. Then she hit send. The screen blinked. Message delivered. She exhaled. Not relief, not yet. More like emotional whiplash. After 3 years of almosts and excuses, she hadn't expected herself to walk away. But something inside her had snapped that morning when Josh forgot her birthday. Again. And not just forgot, he'd casually texted her, busy today. Talk later, while she sat at her desk staring at a slice of grocery store cake she'd bought herself. No call. No visit. No, I'm sorry. So she poured wine. Drafted the message. Reread it 100 times. And now it was out there. She turned her phone face down like that would somehow shield her from the fallout. But it buzzed. Once. Then again. Then again. Her stomach flipped. She picked it up, bracing herself for Josh's predictable backlash, the guilt trip, the defensiveness, the "you're overreacting" speech. Instead, the message preview read, Hi. I think you have the wrong number, but I just want to say that was one hell of a goodbye. She blinked. What? Opening the thread, she saw the full response. I don't know who this was meant for, but they clearly didn't deserve you. And for what it's worth, I hope you find someone who shows up without needing to be asked. Lena stared at the screen. Her cheeks burned. She checked the number she'd texted. 1 digit off. She groaned. Seriously. But instead of deleting the thread, she typed back. I'm mortified. That was meant for my ex. Sorry for the emotional bomb drop. A reply came within seconds. Don't be. It was honest. Brave. And kind of cinematic, if I'm being honest. Lena blinked again. Then laughed, an actual, surprised laugh that startled her cat off the couch cushion. Great. Now I've emotionally monologued at a total stranger. Not the worst thing. Most people just send you up texts. Fair. She paused. Then added. Thanks for being nice about it. You didn't have to reply. Maybe not. But something told me you needed someone to. She didn't know how to respond to that. It felt too intimate. Too seen. Well, thanks. For real. You've earned the title of most compassionate wrong number contact. A prestigious honor. Do I get a trophy? Only if you promise never to use this against me in a TED Talk. Deal. Lena smiled at the screen, then set her phone down again. The silence didn't feel so heavy anymore. That was supposed to be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, after her alarm dragged her into a gray, groggy Wednesday, she opened her phone to a new notification. Same number. Hope today's better. Also, not to be weird, but I keep thinking about what you wrote. She stared at it, still half asleep. But her heart flickered. Not racing. Not panicking. Just flickering. In what way? In the way that it reminded me we're all trying to be chosen by someone. And we rarely ask if they're worth choosing. She sat up. Who was this? Lena read the message twice. Then a third time. There was something about it, not just the words, but the way he said them. Like he wasn't trying to impress her. Like he meant them. She typed back, more cautious this time. You sound like someone who's been on the wrong side of that question before. A pause. Then his reply. More than once. That was it. No self-pity. No dramatic follow-up. Just truth, simple and spare. Lena curled her knees up under her blanket, the coffee cooling in her hand, unread emails blinking in the background. She wasn't sure why she kept replying. Or why she wanted to. Is this where I say same and we trauma bond forever? Only if you send memes too. I don't do sad bonding without memes. Deal. And so it went. That day and the one after. What started as an accidental exchange turned into something more, not in intensity but in rhythm. Quiet check-ins. Thoughtful observations. Jokes. Confessions. No names. No faces. Just messages. It was strange and strangely comforting. On Friday night, she found herself typing, "Can I ask what you do? I promise I'm not a scammer." Darn. And here I was about to wire you my entire fortune. You joke, but I once got a message from a prince in need of $300. Amateur. I'd at least pretend to be a CEO. She hesitated, then asked again. Seriously though, what do you do? A pause. I run a company. Boring stuff. Mostly finance. Her fingers hovered. Wait, you're not actually a CEO, are you? Would it be a red flag if I was? No. Just mildly terrifying. Why? Because I sent a deeply personal breakup text to a millionaire. Correction, you sent it to a phone number. I just happened to be on the other end. She couldn't tell if he was serious, but something about the way he answered made her wonder. Okay, mystery man. If you are a CEO, I'm going to need proof. Preferably not involving yachts or gold watches. No yachts. Just spreadsheets and insomnia. Sexy. The sexiest. She laughed aloud. And then, without meaning to, she found herself typing something more vulnerable. I still haven't heard from the actual guy I meant to text. Not even a "who is this?" Nothing. I guess that's my answer. Another pause. Then, I'm sorry. You deserve better. Yeah. I think I'm finally starting to believe that. Good. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she sat with the words "you deserved better" and let them settle somewhere deeper than she expected. Sunday came with soft rain and the kind of quiet that made the city feel smaller. Lena stood in line at a local bakery, phone in hand, wondering if he'd text that day. He did. I've been thinking. Dangerous start. What if we met? Her heart stopped. Not skipped. Stopped. She read the message twice, then stared blankly at the display case of croissants like they could somehow help her answer. They hadn't even exchanged names. No pictures. Just a thread of words stretching between two people who knew more about each other than they ever intended. I don't know your name. True. I don't know if you're real. Also true. I don't even know if I'm ready. Another pause. Then I'll wait. That shouldn't have made her eyes sting. But it did. She typed slowly. Let's keep talking. Just, not yet. As long as you want. And he meant it. He didn't push. They kept talking. And then one day, weeks later, he slipped. Just a little. She asked him what kind of coffee he liked. From a place called Whitmore Roasters. Near 5th and Langston. She froze. She knew that place. She walked by it every day on her way to work. Wait, do you live in Midtown? I do. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Heart racing. Suddenly, this person, this comforting, clever stranger, wasn't somewhere out there. He was here. This whole time, we've been in the same city? Looks that way. She didn't reply right away. Because if he was close, it meant this wasn't just a fantasy. It meant the idea of meeting him was real. Tangible. Terrifying. Because what if he wasn't who she'd imagined? Or worse, what if he was exactly who she'd imagined and it still didn't work? Lena hadn't stopped thinking about that coffee shop all day. Whitmore Roasters. 5th and Langston. She knew the smell of their beans, the pattern of their tiled floor, the way their baristas drew little ferns in the foam like it mattered. He was real. Here. In her orbit. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if that was a good thing. At 8:43 p.m., her phone buzzed again. I think I should finally introduce myself. She hesitated, then typed. Are you sure? We've had a good streak of anonymity. True. But at some point, the stranger phase has to end, right? Another buzz followed almost immediately. My name's Owen. She stared at it for a long time. It suited him. Somehow, it sounded like the kind of name that would be quietly patient and unexpectedly sincere. She exhaled. Lena. Hi, Lena. Hi, Owen. There it was. Simple. Uncomplicated. Except it wasn't. Because with names came weight. With names came possibilities that couldn't be stuffed back into tidy text bubbles. So, what now? She asked. Now I admit something I wasn't sure I should. Her fingers paused on the glass. Okay. Go on. I knew who you were before you knew me. Her pulse skipped. What? A beat. I didn't mean to. It wasn't creepy. I recognized your name when you first texted. I didn't connect it right away, but after a few messages, I realized you used to work for a nonprofit that partnered with my company. Which company? Radcliffe Ventures. Lena's stomach flipped. Radcliffe. That was big? As in multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that quietly funded half the city big. She blinked. Wait, are you Owen Radcliffe? No reply. Just the 3 dots, blinking, then vanishing. Then blinking again. Yeah. She dropped her phone. Not metaphorically. It hit the couch cushion and bounced off onto the floor like a bad joke from a rom-com that had finally gone off the rails. Her breath came faster. She had been texting Owen Radcliffe. The Owen Radcliffe. Since the breakup text. She scrambled to pick up her phone. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. Why didn't you? Because I liked who I was when I wasn't Owen Radcliffe. She swallowed hard. That's a lot to process. I know. I shouldn't have waited. But the longer we talked, the more I wanted to be just me. Without the headlines. Without expectations. She understood that. Too well, actually. But it didn't stop the swirl in her chest, confusion, curiosity, suspicion. Hope. So everything you said was real? Every word. And you never thought to mention you were literally that Owen? I didn't want you to stop talking to me. That at least felt honest. Lena leaned back, hand pressed to her forehead. She'd gone from breakup text to emotional stranger to accidental emotional stranger who turned out to be one of the city's most powerful men. How was this her life? She needed air. Instead, she types. This doesn't change the things I told you. But it does change the context. I know. I don't know if I can meet you. Okay. No argument. No persuasion. Just that. But if you do, I'll be at Whitmore Roasters at noon. I'll bring a book. You don't have to come in. Or say anything. Just know I'm there. Her throat tightened. What book? The Little Prince. Of course. Of course he was the kind of man who would sit in a suit reading The Little Prince at a local cafe like it was perfectly normal. She didn't reply. Not that night. Not even the next morning. She stood at the bus stop in the rain, hood up, phone silent in her pocket, trying not to imagine him sitting alone at a window table with his worn paperback and quiet hope. And still, her feet moved. At 11:52 a.m. she turned the corner toward 5th and Langston. At 11:58 she stood across the street from Whitmore Roasters, heart pounding, vision blurred by both drizzle and nerves. And at 12:03 she saw him. Seated near the window, sleeves rolled up, one hand resting over a book with a fox drawn on the cover. He wasn't like the photos online, not polished or distant or corporate. He looked real. And she wasn't ready. So she turned and walked away. But she didn't get far. Because her phone buzzed. A new message. I saw you. She stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, pulse thudding. I didn't want to interrupt. You didn't. Just wanted to say hi. Even from across the street. Hi. Hi. She closed her eyes, the weight of the moment pressing into her ribs. He hadn't come running after her. He hadn't demanded. He just sat there, waiting, letting her choose. And for the first time in a long time, that meant something. Lena didn't go back to the cafe that day, or the next, but she read The Little Prince that weekend, cover to cover, and cried harder at a fox than she cared to admit. She didn't know what she was doing, what this was, but something about Owen sitting there without expectation, offering nothing but space and a story, stuck in her mind like a splinter. Kind one. Monday morning, she woke up to a package outside her door. No note, no label. Inside was a sketchbook half filled. The first page held a drawing of a tiny planet and a boy in a scarf. Underneath it, a line. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. Her hand trembled. She didn't text him. She showed up. It was Wednesday, rainy again, fitting, and he wasn't at the cafe. Not yet. She ordered coffee. Sat in his usual spot. Waited. At 12:11, the door chimed. He paused when he saw her, just for a moment, like he wasn't sure if he was imagining her. Then he approached slowly, careful not to break the moment. I was starting to think I'd made you up, he said, voice low. You didn't. He smiled. Not smug, relieved. She motioned to the seat across from her. Sit. He did. They didn't talk for a while. The rain tapped the windows. A couple laughed in the far corner. The barista clattered mugs onto a drying rack. Finally, Owen said, I don't know what you need from me. But I don't need anything from you. Just this. Just now. She nodded, not trusting her voice. I'm not used to that, she said eventually. To what? Someone not trying to convince me of anything. I've done my fair share of convincing, he said. And it never worked. She glanced at him. Exes? He nodded. And boardrooms. That made her laugh softly, unexpectedly. I've thought about what it would have been like if you'd told me who you were on day one, she said. And? I probably would have ghosted you. He grinned. Then I made the right call. But I also might have missed this. That, he said, leaning forward just slightly, would have been a tragedy. There was a pause. She met his gaze, calm, steady, curious, and felt a warmth she hadn't let herself feel in years. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, he admitted. Do you want me to disappear? No, she said quickly, surprising even herself. But I don't want to fall into something just because it's different from what broke me. That's fair. She toyed with the edge of her cup. You feel like fiction, Owen. And you feel like gravity. She looked up. He smiled almost shyly. Real. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know how to respond. So she didn't. She just sat there with him until the coffee went cold and her fear softened into something that felt like permission. Over the next few weeks, they didn't define anything. They met for coffee. They sent memes. They argued about books. He introduced her to jazz. She dragged him to a street art exhibit that gave him paint on his shoes. He never touched her hand. Not once. Until the day she let him. They were walking through the park after a late afternoon coffee, Jamie Cullum in her ears, rain in the forecast again when she stumbled on uneven pavement. Not dramatically. Just enough. He caught her elbow instinctively. But she didn't pull away. She turned slowly and let her fingers close around his. That was it. No fireworks. No declarations. Just warmth. And quiet certainty. He walked her home that night. Didn't ask to come in. Just stood in the doorway with his coat collar turned up and said, text me when you're safe. I'm 10 steps from the door. He shrugged. I'll still worry. She texted him 1 minute later, safe. He replied instantly, good night, Lena. That night, she didn't dream about Josh. Or the breakup. Or the years of almosts and maybes. She dreamed about chalk drawings on sidewalks. About foxes and stars. About someone who let her be still without vanishing. But things got harder too. Not because of Owen, but because people noticed. Her boss asked about the man waiting outside in the sleek car with no logo and too good tailoring. Her best friend sent a screenshot of an article. Owen Radcliffe spotted with mystery woman in Midtown. Lena's heart dropped. There was the thing she feared. The microscope. The stories she hadn't agreed to be in. She didn't respond to the text. She didn't respond to Owen's either. The silence stretched. And stretched. Until he finally knocked. She opened the door in sweatpants and regret. Her hair a mess. The apartment cluttered with dishes and blankets and all the proof that she didn't belong in a headline. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked at her. Then said, you don't have to be afraid of who I am. I'm not. She crossed her arms. You're a story now. We are. Only if you let them write it. And if they do anyway, then we write our own ending. Her eyes filled. I've spent years being invisible, she said. And now I feel too exposed. He stepped closer. Then let's find the middle. Where you get to be seen on your terms. She wanted to believe him. She really did. So she let him in. And that night, for the first time, he stayed. Not in her bed. Just near. Close enough to prove that being real didn't have to mean being unsafe. They didn't make it official. There were no grand declarations. No social media announcements. Just Sunday mornings with shared coffee, laughter that filled up the quiet spaces and the comfort of someone choosing to stay. But Lena still struggled. With the attention. With the fear that it could all collapse the moment she exhaled. And Owen saw it. All of it. One morning after she'd turned off her phone again, overwhelmed by a wave of gossip headlines and assumptions, he placed a small envelope in her hands. Inside was a hand-drawn comic strip clearly scribbled on notebook paper featuring a tiny fox and a girl with a messy bun and oversized sweater. The fox stood on a mountaintop yelling at reporters. Back off. She's not a story, she's a whole universe. She laughed until she cried. And when she looked up, Owen just said, you don't have to say anything. I just want you to remember who you are. That night, she finally invited him in fully. Not just into her apartment, into the corners she usually left dark. She showed him her old paintings, the ones no one ever saw. She told him about the year she didn't leave bed. The therapist she couldn't afford. The father who left when she was 12 and the boyfriend who never really arrived. And he didn't flinch. He listened. And then he said, you are more real than anyone I know. And I don't want perfect. I just want you. She kissed him before she could cry again. They stayed like that, tangled in each other, not because they needed to escape, but because they finally didn't have to. Weeks passed. The city thawed. Buds bloomed along the sidewalks. Coffee shops moved chairs outside again. And one morning, Owen called her from the street. I'm downstairs. She buzzed him in, assuming coffee. Or maybe a book. Instead, He showed up with a folded piece of paper and a nervous smile. "What's this?" "A letter," he said. "A real one." She sat down, opened it, and began to read. "Lena, I never expected to answer a stranger's message and find the one person who would see me clearer than anyone else ever has. I've lived a life full of numbers, decisions, forecasts. But I didn't know how to forecast what it would feel like to lose sleep because I couldn't stop thinking about your words, your voice, your laugh. I didn't know how important it would feel just to be let into your day. You've given me more than connection. You've given me a beginning. And I'd like to keep writing it with you if you'll let me." She looked up. "I'm not asking for forever," he said quietly. "I'm asking for right now. And tomorrow. And the chance to keep choosing you." Her throat closed. So she nodded. And said okay. And they kissed like it was the first one, the real one, the kind that didn't come from impulse or heartbreak or dares, but from months of understanding, silence, and laughter. Later that year, Lena's phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. "Sorry, I think this was meant for someone else. But it sounds like you're going through something. Hope you're okay." She stared at it, smile tugging at her lips. She showed it to Owen. He raised a brow. "Déjà vu." She grinned. And replied, "You know, sometimes wrong numbers are the right ones." Then she turned off her phone, curled into the man who had once been a stranger, and let herself believe in the kind of ending that doesn't need fireworks, just the quiet certainty of being seen, chosen, and loved.
Bye, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.